Oh my god, how many of you actually thought it was on mute? Oh my god, I really hope I got at least one of you. Alright, so anyway, now, really quick, welcome back, Honors. Good to see you. Sorry that Scott Fitzpatrick wasn't in this one again today, but hey, he's not going to be here when I'm here at 7:04 in the morning, right? So we're going to go ahead and bang this thing out now, right, before we all even get to class, because the chances of us being able to go over really anything in class today are going to be kind of slim, because we have your map quiz today, right? So let's keep getting after it. Let's keep pushing forward, okay? So anyway, but let's talk about the Gracchi again real quick. Let's review what we've already talked about in class, okay? So following the Roman wars of conquest, like that of the Punic Wars and things like that, Rome's just going to be in shambles. Veterans are being taken advantage of. Civil wars are breaking out, right? So you got certain people that are advocating for the stripping of land from the wealthy to give to the veterans. Those guys include the Gracchi, right? The Gracchi brothers. So we talked about Tiberius Gracchus and how he wanted to actually strip land from the wealthy and give them to the veterans. He financed a bill to do it. And then he's going to be beat to death with wooden chairs by the Roman Senate. Terrible way to go. I wonder if he watches Monday Night Raw, if he freaks out the second guy pulls a chair out of the stands. Now, Gaius Gracchus, his brother, is going to try and push the reforms of his brother as well, and also bring full citizenship to all Italians. He's also not really going to be killed in cold blood because he's going to fall on his sword, right? So, on purpose. Now, their reforms, though, are going to trigger a civil war, right? Something that some of you haven't even been realizing this whole time, though, is that if these reforms and strife within the empire, especially that of in Rome, is triggering civil wars, that means that we're going to have the rise of a new group of people. Who comes in during a time of war? The dictators begin to rise up, right? So, dictators are going to be called in multiple times to try and help quell some of these civil wars, right? So the civil wars demanded a need for a lot of really strong leaders. Enter the dictators, right? So, right, enter the dictators. Now, the big one that we know of early on, right, following the reforms of the Gracchi, is a guy by the name of Sulla, right? So Sulla was yet another example of a successful dictator because he actually stopped 2 civil wars, helped conquer several small barbarian tribes in smaller parts of Asia, very strong leader, and gave power back to the Republic following 9 straight years of war, right? So Sulla, a new model for a really good dictator, right? Sulla was a positive reformer. He was a positive guy, and he was like, I'm going to actually help stop these conflicts and then move into something more stable, right? Well, is every emperor going to do that? Not an emperor. Is every dictator going to do that? Of course not. Especially not this guy, right? So now we're talking about this man beneath us, Gaius Julius Caesar, all right? That's his actual name, Gaius Julius Caesar, okay? Because in 59 BC, Julius Caesar is going to be elected consul, all right? So Julius Caesar, a patrician, born to a very high heritage, right? Let's stop pretending he started at the bottom and now he's here, right? So he wants to actually rule all of Roman lands, and he actually has high hopes and plans to do that. He was an officer of the military, he was a part of several campaigns, and he wants to form an army and capture this place called Gaul, right? So his plans are, I need to actually leave Rome following my consulship, because all the consuls only actually ruled for 1 year, and then they actually had to step down. So jot that down next to your government chart somewhere, right? Had to rule for 1 year, then had to step down, okay? So he actually takes an army over to France and captures a place called Gaul, right? You know what I mean? And he watches Rome closely from a distance. And he's just waiting. And in 49 BC, he returns to Rome, and the civil war had broken out. So after 3 years of civil war, Caesar was appointed dictator, okay? So Caesar, that is how his rise to power. He basically went and became a governor somewhere and just waited for Rome to fall into another war, which he knew was going to happen because the Senate was getting out of order, right? And he decided he was going to rise up, become a dictator, and actually make some reforms. Now, Caesar also, though, was very well aware of the things that he needed to do, right? So he creates the very first political alliance, actually known officially as the First Triumvirate, right? So, and that First Triumvirate is made of 3 very important figures in history: Caesar, Pompey, Crassus, right? So Crassus is going to die in battle later on. The much funnier thing, though, is how this whole thing falls apart. So originally, the First Triumvirate was all about these three men serving each other's needs, with Caesar as dictator and Pompey and Crassus as another general as well as a consul. They decided to try and help advance each other's political means. But the problem is the triumvirate is going to break down when they disagree on how to govern and they disagree on power, right? So Pompey and Crassus are actually going to unite against Caesar, right? And they tell Caesar, while he's over invading another part of Gaul and he's growing the empire a little bit more, they're like, Caesar, return to Rome without your army. Disband them, and we will allow you to live, right? Ooh, Caesar don't like that. So Caesar says, all right, you want to play that game? And he crosses the Rubicon with an entire army behind him and literally is going to basically, invade Rome. Funny thing about Pompey, too, he actually was obsessed with Alexander the Great. He actually had the same kind of hairstyle, like a boyish, like tousled kind of hairstyle. So it's really, really funny to talk about him in retrospect to Crassus as well. But Crassus is going to die in battle, and then Pompey is eventually going to die in battle as well. Actually, I think Pompey dies on a boat, murdered by some of his own officers. Pretty confident they cut his head off and put it on a stick. I'm going to need to look that up. Dean, I'm going to need you to look that up, all right? Pretty confident, though, Pompey died because he came onto a boat and people killed him. I'm pretty confident that's what happened. Yeah, double check on that for me, Dean. Now, Julius Caesar, though, is going to basically become the sole dictator following the crumbling of this alliance when he crossed the Rubicon with his entire army. Let's talk about him real quick. Very strong leader, improves the lives of the veterans, made laws to help the... spoiler alert. Now, made laws to help the poor, created new jobs, gave citizenship to more people. Caesar's biggest proponent was he actually listened to the reforms of the Gracchi, and he pushed the Republic forward. And he also made it so that he was smart enough to realize, I have to make the people love me, right? So he actually went through the hearts of the Romans and actually went after them personally in the terms of trying to improve their lives and actually make all this possible. So check it out. One of the things he actually did for the veterans, there's a region in Italy called Tuscany, right? World's best wine comes from there. Capital city of Tuscany is Florence. He actually established that entire state just to give to veterans, right? He was like, this entire region right here for the veterans. I don't care who I'm stealing it from, right? So the veterans love him. The laws to help the poor were things about labor and also creating new, more equitable ideas and allowing patricians and plebeians to get married to one another and stuff like that. Boom, the people love him, right? Give citizenship to more people, allow them to vote and participate in their government. Boom, the people love him. But really quickly, who's this making mad the entire time? Very nice job. I hear Denahi freaking out over there. The Senate is getting livid because they can sense what's really going on. He is trying to become a dictator for life. So what do you think the Senate decides they're going to do to Caesar? Right? So they want to stab him to death. So anyway, so that is the event known as the Ides of March, right? So the Ides of March is when in 44 BC, Caesar was appointed dictator for life, right? Voted on by the Council of Tribunes as well as several other senators that he would be elected dictator for life, right? So a lot of senators were completely aware that they were like, we don't want this philandering skis bag to be our dictator because we want the power. Why I say philandering is because it's kind of funny because Caesar got around a little bit, right? He actually dated Cleopatra for a little while and wanted to bring her back to Rome, but all the Romans freaked out because they were like, ew, no, she's not Roman. And then also not to mention the fact, too, this is a great one. So all the conspirators that stabbed Caesar to death, the worst one was known as Brutus, right? So Brutus actually was I believe a senator himself, but was one of the lead conspirators in the Ides of March, right? By the way, the Ides of March means the middle of March, right? Because we believe that he was actually stabbed to death around March 15th while he was on the way to the Senate. And what ended up happening, though, Caesar was hooking up with Brutus's mom, all right? So Caesar was actually dating and having a relationship with Brutus's mom, and it became a really, really, really big running joke in all of Rome that, oh, Brutus, I bet Caesar, your real dad. And so everybody was messing with him, and also he literally just couldn't stand the idea of the power passing to this man, right? So he gets an entire conspiracy of about I think it's 17 members, to actually isolate Caesar while he's on his way to the Senate. We still to this day don't know where exactly he was stabbed in the forum, but we know he was on his way, right? And they decide that they're going to stab him to death. Now, funny enough, all of the dagger strikes that actually stabbed Caesar while they were stabbing him were superficial wounds, right? They had small daggers, right? So superficial wounds in his shoulders, his legs, his hips, his back, and stuff like that. So superficial means like it's not going to kill him, right? But then Brutus walks up. Oh, by the way, really funny thing too. Caesar didn't have a weapon on him, so he was trying to defend himself with a writing stylus. Like he had like a pencil, and he was like just trying to stab at the people that were coming after him the entire time. Brutus then walks up, right? And according to Shakespeare, he said, "Et tu, Brute," and you, Brutus, right? As in identifying him as the main conspirator. Probably never said that. Probably also never said Veni Vidi Vici, which means I came, I saw, I conquered, but also a Shakespeare thing. But Brutus walks up with his dagger and then just goes up to Caesar and slits his throat and kills him. Could you imagine for a moment, you're sitting there like stabbed to death, almost to death, and somebody just like, huh, and then it, like that is terrifying. But they end up killing Caesar due to the fact that they thought he was going to make himself king, right? So, now some of you are like, don't you mean emperor, Mr. Terry? No, I don't mean emperor, because emperor was a word that was degenerated off the word imperator, which doesn't happen until Augustus, his grandnephew, which we'll talk about tomorrow. Yeah. All right, good stuff, guys. Very proud of you. I will see you guys tomorrow. Have a great evening.